In the vast universe of anime, few moments are as exhilarating and iconic as a character's grand entrance. Whether it's a hero's dramatic arrival, a villain's menacing debut, or the sudden appearance of a mysterious figure, these entrances have the power to captivate audiences and leave a lasting impression. So without any further ado, here's a list of the top most legendary anime entrances. You probably saw this coming now, didn't you? Yes, it's indeed Shinra saving Tamaki. Really hurts seeing the whole build up to the scene, don't you agree? Poor Tamaki deserved none of that, and we get an entire minute or two of her getting stomped and broken down. Then it's time for the heroic devil to make an entrance. Despite his sinister smile and profile, Shinra comes crashing down, being the greatest hero that our kitty needs. That stomp felt extra satisfying, and Shinra's smile when delivering the beatdown was just the perfect expression for that moment. Naruto coming back to save Konoha must be the defining moment in the middle portion of Shippuden. A hero makes his heroic entrance at the perfect time, and this time it's usually when all hope seems lost. When it's well executed, it doesn't matter if you can see it coming a mile away, you will cheer. That's my experience when Naruto returned in Sage Mode. To say that the situation in Konoha is bleak is an understatement. After a long battle which saw many wounded and many casualties of pain, we see the entire city leveled by the power of pain. Seeing a lot of our old favorites drop against him felt painful, and it seems there's no one that can stop him. That's when this epic moment happens. Naruto, now in Sage Mode, comes back with the toads in tow. A returning hero, the last hope in the face of certain doom. It's one of the staples of storytelling, but its effectiveness is one of the reasons why it never seems to go out of favor. And with it being Naruto, of all people, makes it all the more better. The same Naruto that was ostracized, belittled, and bullied by a lot of the village residents. That context makes this the true culmination of his long journey filled with trials and tribulations. With all the emotional moments and culminations of character arcs, how about we go back to something more simple? I'm talking about Black Ball saving Finral. Now this is a quick moment, but a second or two is all you need to establish multiple things. In this case, the most important one would be the bond that the Black Bulls share with one another. They may have their differences, but when push comes to shove, this is a squad of fire-forged brothers that will defend each other till the end. I like how this also comes at the end of Finral's defeat. We spent a long time seeing Finral getting looked down on and belittled, and it seems that the anime wanted to drive home the point that despite his demeanor, Finral's really a nobody. Then with his day of reckoning about to come, who else better to come to his rescue than the ragtag group of baddies called the Black Bulls. Looking at how serious and off character everyone seems to be acting, you know for sure that Langris messed up big time. The look on Luck's face says it all. It's an extremely tense moment that serves to ease the tension after having us go through the emotion of Langris and Finral's backstory. We then proceed with Alucard's Level 0 release.
私は自らに羽を食らい
As an embodiment of the cool, edgy character, Alucard has that role locked up. Everything about him screams that 2000s brand of awesome. Dark, overpowered and violent, but also an amusing side to boot. The guy just radiates 2000s energy, but in case you find yourself getting caught up in the awesomeness, here's a reminder that this vampire is also the purest embodiment of evil. There's no better way to show it when he finally releases Level 0, leaving a whole sea of carnage in his wake. With the visage of Level 0 Alucard looming over you, the only thing you can do is let go of all hope. Fall into despair in the face of the force that's about to consume you. That, dear viewers, is what this scene does so hard to convey, and I couldn't have thought of a better way to do it. With him on their side, why would Integra even need an army like all the other battling forces in the show? Alucard himself is enough, and this entrance more than highlights that fact. He alone is a one-man army, the purest manifestation of the horrors that lie beyond human comprehension. Yeah, A moment from one of the arcs I liked from early Mushoku Tensei. This scene happens towards the end of Rudeus and Eris's escape. Prior to this, they found themselves in quite a pickle after Rudy's plan goes horribly wrong. Thankfully, they're not alone in this fight though. I just love how dynamic the anime team made the entry here. It probably has to do with how the scene's presented from Ghislaine's perspective for much of the rescue. When she drops down to break the sword in a series of freeze frames, you really get to experience the moment. It does a great job of selling to us Ghislaine's power, and the preceding demolition of the criminals, that's just the icing on the cake. It is a short moment, but you can easily tell that much care has been put into it, much like Mushoku Tensei's anime adaptation in a nutshell. Saitama's entrance in the meteor scene is another moment I'd like us to appreciate. One Punch Man is about one overpowered hero who easily sweeps away the competition. Now, it doesn't sound too engaging for someone new and hasn't watched the anime itself, I can understand that. But can we give some props to the anime team for giving us so many goosebump-inducing and tearful moments before the titular hero comes to save the day? The anime team sure knows how to present the hype and tension in such a good way, and this scene featuring the meteor is no different. Genos gets his time to shine, and he's sure made trying to stop the meteor a spectacle. Even if we all know it's just an appetizer for the main event, it only makes the moment more awesome. After Genos' fight, Saitama comes and we get to see him showcase once again why he's one of the most overpowered characters in anime. The way he destroyed the meteor in such an over-the-top manner is great, and the hype Genos scene beforehand only served to help us prepare ourselves for the awesomeness that was about to follow. Up heroes do what heroes do in this next scene from My Hero Academia.
Smash!
The UA alumni comes to save the day again when they rescue Bakugo in this scene that blends the comedic with the hype. All Might's no stranger to these moments. In fact, the first season ended with him pulling a solo rescue. However, he's brought his buddies around this time, and they waste no time laying waste to the villains in this scene that started out quite awkwardly comedic. I mean, pizza delivery. Honestly though, I like the rather wholesome touch of awkwardness shown in the villain's side before things get serious with a big All Might smash. The heroes waste no time attacking as the tempo of the scene shoots up into a frenzy. Now, who had the best entrance here? I think Edgeshot had a pretty good one, don't you think? There's also a rather touching moment at the end with All Might and Bakugo. The two had a very rich history together, and it's nice to see moments like these that serve to build it further. Bailey's entrance in the auction is up next. Now, we all know about Luffy and the punch that was heard all over the world, but what about the things that happened next? Of note was Rayleigh's entrance to the scene, which marks his debut as an active part of the story. He makes his grand entrance, but like the scene before this, it's not without some comedic elements. We have the power of hindsight, but I just found it funny that everyone's worried about the giant instead of, freaking Rayleigh himself, the guy who demonstrated the power of Conqueror Haki. You also gotta love how chill Rayleigh was in the whole ordeal. This, along with how he addresses Luffy and everyone, is overall a scene that really sets a tone for his relationship with the protagonist later, and for me, that's what makes a great debut and an entrance for the ages. He'd proved to be an invaluable mentor to Luffy, but that's a tale for another time. For now, let's sit back and relish in this epic debut. Rurouni Kenshin, Trust and Betrayal opens with one of these, and it sets the tone for our hero's origin story. Hiko Seijuro is one overpowered monster. That certainly should be how Kenshin, still going by Shinta at the time, saw him, and he mercilessly slew the group of bandits with ease. It's a simple scene and all, but at this point, you can already tell that this 4-part OVA is going to be one that's a lot darker than the majority of the mainline series. One that tells of Kenshin's trials and tribulations before becoming the man he was at the start of the series. You gotta love Hiko's demeanor as he dispatches the bandits, and I personally give 2 thumbs up to the shot of him against the moon. It just gives the sort of calm yet dangerous ambiance that we've come to always expect from the series' strongest character. To further illustrate the point, look at how the poor guy who tried to attack him was annihilated. A good debut involves quickly re-establishing the character and getting the people to know him. Rayleigh does it, and Hiko does it even better here, if we're going with giving the audience the sense of danger. You can watch lightning strike twice as Tengen makes another epic interception and save. Just when we all thought he's down for the count, he comes in the clutch and saves Tanjiro from Gyotaro, and he just has to do it in the most epic way possible. Just like most things Demon Slayer, it's the presentation that lifts this moment up more than where it should be, and we've got to thank the anime team for that. The music, the slow cut in, and the responding attack all lead us to a moment that's once again short but sweet. It's one motion, but it's one motion that gives you so much impact that you can't help but feel goosebumps watching this short clip. If this doesn't establish Tengen as one of the most badass pillars the anime has shown so far, then I don't know what does. Attack on Titan really wasted no time in going for it, right? The already cool premise becomes even more engaging in practice once you get to see how the colossal Titan got introduced. Amidst the narration, audiences were treated to an astounding testament to the crisis that we've only felt or heard of. When the colossal Titan makes its appearance, it does so not with a bang, but with the whole atmosphere created by its mere presence, as well as the ominous presence it exudes just by standing, making this one of the stronger villain entrances / debuts off the top of my head. There's no loud shouting, there's no over-the-top reactions, just plain unadulterated fear. Something you'd expect from humanity when faced with a larger-than-life threat, one that threatens the very foundations of their very existence. It's an entrance that makes the threat feel very real, and I think it's one of the best ones out there thanks to how much it helped push the premise and the mood that the series was going for. How about transitioning to Sengoku Basara and Hideyoshi's first appearance? Toyotomi Hideyoshi has long been a stock character of sorts in Japanese media. Next to Nobunaga himself, who better to portray than one of his finest allies and mightiest generals? The Hideyoshis in anime and video games come in different flavors, but in terms of sheer power and dread, none evoke that feeling more than the Sengoku Basara 2 form. He's got the gruff look and the spoken hype down pat. But how does he prove he's one of the most badass portrayals of this historical character? How about staying unfazed in the face of a rain of arrows before standing there and casually sending everything back at your attackers? Yeah, that will teach these enemies the meaning of fear, right? And you want to know what the catch is? Hideyoshi doesn't even use any weapons. None. Just pure fists and brute strength as he lays out his enemies en masse. And all it takes to drive that message home is this banger of a first appearance. Things down a bit with Nui's first appearance in Kill La Kill. From bombastic entrances, we reach Nui's introduction. Now, how does this cute and childish girl's first appearance compare to all the badassery that we've seen so far? Well, in terms of pure awesomeness, there's nothing to write home about at first, except the super casual one-shot on Uzu, establishing her as a major threat. Then she walks towards Ryuko and nonchalantly reveals her role in killing Ryuko's father. All that, along with the reveal of the scissor blade, done in a playful manner of course, and in a flick of a finger, things suddenly take on a complete 180-degree turn in terms of stakes. Sengetsu goes berserk. Now it's on. While this villain entrance may not have the big ominous atmosphere at first, it's one that I'll always remember because of how quickly things turn from playful and comedic to serious and high stakes, and I think the great villains can easily flip that switch. Suddenly, we have a major battle on our hands. Oh, and if you're having a great time and want more content like this in the future, show your appreciation by giving this video a thumbs up and helping the channel grow. Coming off the break now, we look at the Owl's entrance in Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul has really fallen off in terms of reputation after the first season. It's such a sad fate comparable to what happened to 7 Deadly Sins. But don't let the haters fool you though. Tokyo Ghoul, even past its first season, still has a bevy of awesome moments and scenes that completely run away with the rule of cool. And this is one such example. Don't tell me you won't be scared out of your wits seeing Owl descend and appear from the smoke like that, and you're trapped there with him. Nowhere to go, nowhere to run. Just you and this monster that puts some RPG bosses to shame in sheer fear factor. We're left wondering what's next, then the screen just fades to black. An abrupt end that keeps us on the edge of our seats wanting to know what's going to happen next. Al's already established as a character before this, so this doesn't count as a debut, but as far as villain entrances and the emotions they make you feel, this is one extremely powerful scene. Next up is Bondrewd's resurrection. I featured Made in Abyss quite several times on my lists, but I don't think I've ever featured the characters that much. That changes today, and let's give a round of applause to Bondrewd for this great villain debut. By the time this arc rolled around in anime form, Bondrewd has been sort of a mastermind behind the scenes. The master of body surfing carries with him a rather unpleasant reputation and has been a thorn in the side of our heroes. However, those fears created by his reputation and actions get turned up to 11 when he emerges again in his physical form, and boy is it scary to see the scene play out if we do a bit of empathizing. This moment toys with us, showing Prushkar's supposedly heartwarming reaction, only for a hand to grab hold of said heart and twist it around to establish that, yeah, this guy here is legit one of the worst people in fiction. This moment toys with us and gives us a huge amount of suspense as to what's next for the character. What more can this guy who has no sense of good or evil do? What's important is that he's back and the main characters are going to be in for the fight of their lives. Arkaza makes an appearance here, rather out of nowhere like he did. The whole Infinity Train movie, or arc depending on which medium you watch this on, led us all to believe that Enmu was the big one. I mean, this is the guy who survived Muzan's purge of his subordinates while carrying what conceptually is very overpowered ability. Then the good guys beat him in an epic battle and it's time for the unwinding, right? Suddenly this new demon, Upper Moon 3, appears out of nowhere just right when our heroes are at their most vulnerable, and it's a sudden climax just when you thought it was all over. Arkaza's entrance for me excels so much due to its timing and how much it shifted the tone of the movie or episode. It just fits so perfectly with Ufotable's art and sound direction, the whole thing with Arkaza appearing and only Rengoku being in any form ready to battle. What followed was one of the greatest fights in battle shonen movie history. Yes, Igneel. The same Igneel we're left to believe was gone for half the series makes his return to even the odds in the hopeless battle against Acnologia. That's just no way for the heroes and their attacks to reach the all-powerful Acnologia, and with the threat of Face looming in the distance, they needed bigger backup. And that backup came in the form of Igneel, who burst out of Natsu. It's an awesome cliffhanger to an episode, and one that made all Fairy Tail fans feel emotional. Igneel finally returned in full glory to take on Acnologia in the Clash of the Titans that everyone wanted. That's the highlight of the arc, and it all started from a surprising return that had everyone all hyped. The moment was just pure awesomeness. Never mind the rest of the dragons soon coming back to help while the heroes battle their respective opponents. The Tartarus arc is amazing in its own ways. We've all had heroic examples, so how about changing a little bit now and featuring Yujiro? When it comes to Yujiro, you expect a burly beast of a man. Someone who comes in heralded by thunder and lightning, striking fear into the hearts of everyone. Just look at how intimidating his verbal introduction was. Look at how much the characters hyped his prowess. Now, did you expect something this over the top? Jumping straight out of a helicopter before swinging into a building is something you'd expect agile secret agents would do. Not Yujiro, but boy did he completely pull it off perfectly. Everyone's reaction says it all. This completely came out of the left field, but in a way, it also fits Yujiro to do something as big as this and be the talk of the town. Yujiro has got a lot of great moments both in the classic Baki and the modern sequel, and this ranks somewhere high up there. Endeavor has one of these, you know. How could Endeavor, out of all people, not join the party? It's something he won't allow in-universe, and with how cool this scene was, it's also something that I'd love to be part of the list. We've had a lot of discussion on Endeavor fights and how awesome they are, but how about this entrance? He comes out of nowhere, delivering a punch filled with so much power you can feel it beyond the screen. Such a grand and powerful entrance is oh so fitting for Endeavor. He's all straight to business, which also gives some good contrast with All Might, come to think of it. Whereas the latter lets the moment sink in and seems to relish how his grand entrance will come as a source of relief to others, Endeavor goes straight to the explosions and the power moves. A go-getter and a perfectionist in the truest sense of the word, Endeavor really deserves this kind of entrance. It's filled with energy and power, much like how Yujiro does his. It's time to go back to the classics with Goku arriving to fight Frieza. With even the mighty Vegeta falling against the power of Frieza, all hope is lost. However, hope is never lost if Goku's around, and our main character uses his chance to make his grand entrance to Namek, the perfect opponent to try and put an end to Frieza's ambitions. And while this entrance isn't as bombastic in modern standards, it's the thought that counts. I just can't imagine how it feels to be a DBZ fan back when this was first airing and seeing Goku save the day. Frieza has already been properly hyped, and Goku making his grand return gives the feeling of two unstoppable forces colliding. This is peak Goku, not in terms of power, but in terms of presence. You can tell everyone knows the battle's taken a completely different turn upon his arrival in the scene. If you're up for something flashier, more eye-catching in the traditional way, we have Minato's arrival for you.
遅かったか?
What's the most awesome way to enter the fray? It won't be undisputed top of the list, but warping away the Ten Tails attack while arriving in such a cool pose has to be up there. And that's what Minato just did in this scene that we'll be remembering for a very long time. Ever since the Kages got revived in the final Naruto arc, we all knew they were going to do something amazing, but it's just so fitting that Minato not only arrives first, but also does the heavy lifting. Minato's arrival marks a major breakthrough in the Alliance counterattack. I like how the epic moment also manages to throw in some comedic banter to lighten the mood after the Alliance just faced a complete wipe seconds ago. It also gave the floor for the other Kages and Sasuke to make it back and maybe give everyone a fighting chance. Not only does this scene depict an epic entrance by an anime dad, it's also one of the most amazing ways the hero team gets saved. Now this is a moment that's pure, unadulterated presence. Dragon's got the look to pull it off, and the way he saved Luffy from Smoker surely got One Piece fans worldwide off their seats, stunned in awe. The rain and thunder just adds to the moment so much, giving Dragon that extra oomph to this entrance. He didn't crash into the scene or stop a world-ending attack with this one. There's not much fanfare, but the energy is just there. The presence is so overwhelming, and this arrival sets the stage perfectly for the showcase of power Dragon proceeds to show. Luffy may not have a proper relationship with his father, but at the end of the day, it's nice to know that our aspiring Pirate King has a father that he can rely on when the going gets tough. Ah yes, the highly anticipated Deku versus Shigaraki. You see, this isn't their first fight. Deku tried to defeat this villain multiple times in the past, but this time their confrontation was a little bit different. We get to see Midoriya using his gear shift for the very first time, and boy was it glorious. It's a power that allows him to alter the velocity of anything he touches, including himself. Essentially, it's like having the ultimate control over speed. Midoriya can shift gears to either accelerate, decelerate, or even make something stop entirely in an instant. I'm pretty sure all One Piece fans felt something when Midoriya pulled this one off. Next, we have D meeting the Marcus brothers from Vampire Hunter D, a local badass with a penchant for cool entries. Besides, when you're a half-human, half-vampire hybrid who hunts vampires with a vengeance, it automatically boosts your badass points. To emphasize how cool D's entry is, let me tell you about the time the Marcus brothers stumbled onto him. Upon hearing a horse in the distance, one of the Marcus brothers, Borgoff, aimed for the distance and fired an arrow from a modified bow. The arrow flew straight into our hero's hand, and I don't mean that as a figure of speech. D literally caught the arrow as it was flying towards him. Next thing you know, his horse stands on its hind legs, making its awesome cape flare up and look like wings against the moon, resulting in a gorgeous visual. D then broke the arrow while giving the Marcus brothers a bombastic side-eye before riding off into the distance.
D.
Next up on our list we have Natsu's return after his year of training in the anime Fairy Tail. It was the final day of the Grand Magic Games, the competition to decide which guild was the strongest in Fiore. The crowd's all excited for what's in line when a mysterious figure walks into the playing field. Clad in a cool hood and giving off some incredible magic power, Lucy gets so worried from seeing the future that she's about to order an evacuation, only for Natsu to take off his hood with a burst of fire as he stands to face the supposed strongest guild around. This guy single-handedly causes a heat blast that melts everyone's clothes and results in a visually satisfying explosion and fan service. A bunch of fan service. The visuals aside, the part that makes this entrance particularly legendary is that Natsu shows up in front of the guild, crowned the strongest in the games, and proceeds to make them run for their lives in a little over a minute. With most of that minute consisting of him walking into the field, definitely some Muzan vibes right there. Moving on, we have Kafka Hibino from Kaiju number 8, who's your average 32-year-old man who's fed up with his job. Kafka's badass entrance against the deadly kaiju made us all fall for him, including Shinomiya, whom he saved. Shinomiya, who's the daughter of a legendary Defense Force officer and a prodigy herself, found herself in a seriously tight spot during a kaiju battle. She's tough as nails and doesn't back down, but even she got overwhelmed when a particularly nasty kaiju decided to make her its next snack. In the heat of the battle, just when things were looking grim, Kafka jumped in, transformed into his kaiju number 8 form, and with monstrous strength and agility, he takes on the kaiju, saving Shinomiya from what would have been a very messy end. We have an entrance from the anime Ishura. Yuno, the distant Talon, has her entire life disrupted as mechanical golem-type demons attack from the Great Labyrinth and cause massive destruction. The poor mage, despite having an awesome name, is quickly surrounded by these mini-mechas. Death approaches her as she tries to fight them off, but suddenly the golems turn into dead golems. Not the smoothest line, I know, but it is what it is. Sojiro appears. This badass has one of the worst attitudes possible, but he's just so good at what he does. By wiping out the golems, Sojiro makes the things we thought were a massive threat into cannon fodder. Apart from being visually gorgeous, the entrance shows off Sojiro's strength by his extremely chill attitude, and the voice acting really does it justice. Did I mention the fact that he also proceeds to take down an Evangelion level mecha with a busted sword? How cool is that? Now let's talk about Joseph Joestar. You may remember him as an old guy since that's how he looks in the newest seasons, even though he had his glory days. I'm talking about the time when our boy learned how to use Harmon and fought the Pillar Men. This particular instance is when Santana was making a mess of the Germans by shooting bullets from his fingertips. Is that bizarre? Well, it gets even wackier when Joseph suddenly rushes in, tears hair from a German officer's head, and proceeds to make a barrier to block the bullets Santana fires. I won't lie, this is probably the only anime that will let an English dude rip out hair from a German dude's head before imbuing it with the power of the sun to block bullets. Shot out from what is basically a vampire, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is definitely an apt name for this one. Suffice to say, this was definitely Joseph at his peak, and if I ever had a list of the top legendary entrances in JoJo, this would be 100% at the top of my list. Up next, we have Ragnar's entrance from Ragnar Crimson. Here's a bit of background. Dragons attack the city because their god's favourite pastry shop closed down. End of background. At this moment in time, Grimwald, one of the strongest dragons, was about to end our heroine's life. Ragnar had already seen what had happened in the past, and he gained his future self's strength and memories so that the past wouldn't be repeated. Or the future. I mean, it is a little bit confusing, but I think you understand what I mean, right? After gaining the power his future self would have, Ragnar's killing intent is enough to stop Grimwald in his tracks. The entire battlefield gets filled with frozen dragons, and all you can hear are Ragnar's footsteps and the faint sound of the wind. This was a great choice by the studio, as it really makes you feel the weight of the situation and Ragnar's power. The way Ragnar speaks about his losses and wins sends shivers down your spine. This scene was definitely a feast for our eyes. The icy cold aura was exceptionally well done and certainly helped distract you from the less than ideal CGI elements. It's time to talk about the legendary entrance of a man who wears many masks. To some, he's the Undertaker, to others, Baligar, but to his enemies, he's simply the Reaper, and they'd rather not meet him. The scene kicks off with the good guys getting absolutely wrecked and outgunned by a swarm of creepy spider mechas. Ugh. Just when a tank spider's about to crush our heroes, the Reaper shows up and starts handing out beatdowns like it's a clearance sale. Switching between melee and long-range combat like he's flipping channels, the Reaper dances through enemy lines, dismantling them piece by piece. Sure, the CGI might be a little hard to stomach, but the animation still delivers as we watch the Reagan Leaf move with lethal precision. This moment is pure adrenaline, and it's just the kind of epic you expect from the Reaper. When it comes to hype entrances, we can't exclude Kirito from Sword Art Online Alicization. This entrance in particular takes place during the War of the Underworld, during which Kirito was effectively in a coma. Vasago, our sweet old villain, was threatening Asuna and the others, intending to kill as many of them as needed for Kirito to wake up. The battle wasn't going in favour of our heroes, and Asuna was on the ground as the battle waged on, when suddenly everything froze over. Kirito then proceeded to defend Asuna and fight off against the overly excited Vasago. Honestly, the guy was a little bit too excited. I mean, it gave me Hisoka vibes for a minute there. Creep factor aside, Kirito's awakening was something fans wanted to see, and his waking up with his past powers was such an awesome addition. We saw our black swordsman dual-wielding like before in his previous getup and turning Vasago into a tree. Suffice to say, it was visually stunning, and you could feel the emotions in the soundtrack. The choreography was gorgeous too. We really can't keep the original hanging in the shadows. I'm talking about the one and only Guts from Berserk.
誰だ
Oh yeah, and the tavern scene I'm talking about isn't from that god-awful CGI-filled monstrosity that was the 2016 remake. I'm talking about the good old 1997 version, which was by far better than most of the Berserk's animated series. The world is in chaos due to Griffith's ascension, and things are pretty bleak. Around this time, a couple of thugs are oppressing a young girl in a tavern, but the people around are too afraid to intervene. The girl's grandpa shows up and tries to beg the thugs to let her go, only to be kicked into the ground. The scene truly makes you angry, but it sets everything up just right as suddenly one of the guys abusing the girl gets an arrow shot through his skull. The next thing you know, most of the thugs are dead and one of them is cleaved in half by one swing of Guts' massive sword. The entire situation and the oppressive aura Guts showcases just makes this tavern scene a spectacular entrance. While on the topic of badass warriors saving girls, let's talk about Goblin Slayer's first appearance. Just like the world of Berserk, the world of Goblin Slayer is filled with some pretty horrendous situations. Goblins don't care much for humanity, and despite being weak monsters, they make up for it by attacking in packs. They're a bit too fond of human females. The priestess and a beginner party entered a nest of goblins, thinking they'd make for easy pickings. This only leads to almost every one of the party members being either brutally massacred or abused in the worst sense of the word. The priestess too would have been one of the victims if not for our hero's entrance. The way Goblin Slayer entered the nest was just so visually striking, and it was like you were watching a demonic beast walk. He proceeded to calmly kill the goblins before introducing himself as the Goblin Slayer. Note to self, never mess with the dude the series is named after. Well, honestly, we can't talk about legendary entrances without mentioning Shadow. Our hero from the Eminence in Shadow has a flair for the dramatic and has made a whole bunch of awesome entrances. Despite him being a guy who clearly just wants to be cool, Shadow's plus point is that he's extremely powerful. That aside, the entrance I'm talking about happens in Season 2 when the Lawless City is in chaos during the Red Moon. Right about the time 2 of the 3 monarchs in the Lawless City are clashing, Shadow makes his appearance. Just like the moment in Vampire Hunter D, Shadow also has the moon in the background and his clothes flare up, forming wings. Then, in true Shadow style, he drops right into the middle of the monarch's battle and delivers a killer one-liner. The animation, paired with Shadow's unbeatable swagger, makes this entrance unforgettable and undeniably epic. So we have Ichigo's entrance against Yuha. Out of all the entries on this list, this is one of the best if we're talking about visuals. Studio Period showcased its best animation in this moment, and the sheer colours lit up the bleak background. Each of Ichigo's clashes after his entry were downright astounding. Yuha had completely decimated Soul Society by this time, and Ichigo was the last guy still able to fight. Yuha had proved to be too strong to fight against, but Ichigo still gave it his all after coming into the picture in the nick of time. The entrance itself was definitely awesome, but the result was less than ideal since even Ichigo got his butt handed to him after making such a badass entrance. Although, the biggest reveal by far was that Ichigo had Quincy blood. Honestly though, our dude is like a chimera, having literally all the power types available. Next, we move on with Jirocho returning in glory. When talking about Jirocho, our fondest memory of him is probably the moment in episode 211. Remember when he gave Gintoki a lesson in pain? An awesome fight filled with emotion which saw Gintoki actually go out and still lose. Almost 150 episodes later, he makes his grand return, and it's a scene that's nearly as memorable as that Gintoki fight. It's a scene that got fans going wild. Seeing Jirocho arrive with his gang to even the odds was something that some people expected, but all that knowledge doesn't make this moment any less awesome. After such a heated fight that they had before, it felt awesome to see Gintoki and Jirocho team up. The succeeding flashback also gives us some much wanted backstory for Jirocho, shedding more light about his past with Otose. In terms of actual fighting, I still have the fight against Gintoki as my best Jirocho moment, but this one's not too shabby in comparison. Anyone up for some badass butler action? Well, Walter's got you covered. Battle butlers are quite the fun trope in anime, don't you think so? We've got the Sebastians from both Black Butler and Overlord, but how about Walter from Hellsing Ultimate? With the way I talked about Hellsing in the previous videos, I wouldn't blame you for thinking it's the Alucard show. But what if I tell you Walter's just as crazy OP and badass as our protagonist, but in his own way? Here, Walter gives our guests a very warm welcome, complete with razor wires, a very intimidating wall that's full of presence, and a methodical approach to chaos. Fight and struggle as they might, these enemies stand no chance, and it's old Walter we're talking about here. Imagine Prime Walter coming in and laying waste to these fools. Sure, it's not as awe-inspiring as Alucard's feats and transformations, but when you consider the context and see what Walter at his current state is capable of, it's still a pretty damn good entrance and fight, isn't it? Fight is a stretch actually, more like a slaughter if you ask me. Jiraiya is here with a less talked about appearance. Jiraiya is known for a lot of cool moments in the entire run of Naruto. However, one moment that I feel doesn't get enough focus is the time he saved Naruto and Sasuke from Itachi and Kisame. You know, the time way back when Itachi was still meant to be evil. It's a pleasant surprise to have Jiraiya appear just when our two protagonists are on the brink, and his appearance gives a much needed dose of lightheartedness and relief in this moment of tension. And then Sasuke just had to try and steal the spotlight before getting punished for it. With that little commercial out of the way though, we get Jiraiya easily turning the tide. tides, forcing the villains to escape, all without those hack's eyes, demon beasts and the like. People are still debating now whether Jiraiya can take both of them or not, but I think it's much less of a concern than just actually appreciating the moment, remembering Jiraiya for a pretty cool entrance and save that doesn't get talked about enough. Also, a subtle shot of power, as Itachi and Kisame both don't want a piece of him when they're not at full strength. King Bradley also has a pretty cool entrance and fight if you ask me. We've all seen Madara showcase the power scaling of his own series universe with an impressive feat of soloing an entire army, but he's not the first to do it. Granted, King Bradley may also not be the first one either, but this is one of the first memories I have of a villain doing it. Imagine a guy going solo and just rushing everything down, leaving behind a trail of destruction. I mean, it's the stuff of nightmares if you're one of the poor soldiers caught in the crosshairs. All the time, King Bradley approaches his enemies with an uncanny, almost unnerving sense of calm, showing complete control over the situation when the result was never in doubt. And the most stunning part of this was once you settle down and look back at it, King Bradley wasn't in his prime. He's aged through the years and essentially approaching senior years at this point. This moment is memorable for a lot of things. It firmly established King Bradley as an immense threat who still mows down enemies like nothing even way past his prime. It also gave us such badass quotes too. Here's Rayleigh versus Kizaru. Back in the era of One Piece, when everything was just simpler, Rayleigh made an entrance that really left an impression. Just when Kizaru's got our heroes dead to rights, here comes this old man, kicking an attack away and taking over the battle. It's a moment that ages extremely well when you look back at it right now and think of the power scaling at the time. This is a guy who's really old, but at the same time, seeing him take on an admiral and actually keeping up with him was a thing that amazes you even more when you look back with hindsight. Rayleigh manages to get a cut on Kizaru in the process, and that's after coming from a hiatus. By all means, no one who's past his prime and that's supposedly rusty should be able to keep up with freaking Kizaru, but this man did it. I personally hope the fight would have lasted longer, but it's not exactly a serious fight in this case, is it? So that's understandable, I guess. Still, some amazing feats from good old Rayleigh here. Who knows what Rayleigh in his prime can do? I'm positive he'll be able to beat most of the characters at this stage of the story with ease. The Fullbring arc isn't an arc that people look back on fondly. Sure, it's got its fans, but it's also arguable that this is the arc where Bleach's popularity tanked relative to how big it was in the 2000s. Some people cite the change in formula. Others cite what it felt like after story filler Aizen had been defeated. Some people just plain miss the Shinigami. The latter, though, gets rectified in one of the best moments the arc gave us. It's a gripping moment after Ichigo gets betrayed and was at his lowest. Just when he thought even his dad and Urahara had betrayed him, he gets stabbed by a sword. Does that seem familiar? A callback to the first episode, eh? But this time, Rukia didn't come alone. Along with her were all the other Shinigami who had forged a deep bond with Ichigo, his biggest rivals and biggest friends, and Toshiro, who's there for reasons that Thousand Year Blood War shed light on. The whole thing felt like a great reunion between friends, and it's a great way to open up the finale of the arc. Because sometimes, it does take a little push from your comrades to rise from the depths of despair. Escanor facing off against Estarossa from Seven Deadly Sins.
傲慢の罪ライオン神のエスカノール
Most fans of the series can already recall the moment we're talking about, as this was one of the coolest entries in the history of anime. The kingdom of Leones has been taken over by the Commandments, and the Holy Knights have to face off against Estarossa and his Commandment of Love. Unfortunately for them, the Commandment causes anyone experiencing hatred towards another person to be incapable of causing harm to others. So literally all the Holy Knights are stopped dead in their tracks. That's when Escanor makes his grand entrance, unfazed by the effects of the Commandment, and watching him move shocks everyone, including Estarossa himself. Escanor walks right up to Estarossa as his heavy steps shake the ground, and when asked by Estarossa why his commandment doesn't affect him, Escanor simply states that he has no reason to feel hate for those beneath him, and that all he felt was pity. The way Escanor walks towards this formidable opponent and that cold one-liner must have had fans screaming in their seats. It was just that cool.
おやおや、金貨でも落ちていましたか。
エスタロッサが膝をついただと。ガードの上から一撃をもらっただけでありえん。
賊として討伐するのみ。
Moving on to the next entry, we have Hideyoshi parting the sea from Sengoku Basara. Toyotomi Hideyoshi is the general of Toyotomi as a massive fan of gorilla-like proportions. His entrance was especially iconic when he single-handedly went to face off against the army of pirates under Josokabe Motochika. As Josokabe's army was arriving via the sea, Hideyoshi stepped into the sea while his army stood on the shoreline. Accompanied only by some incredible music, Hideyoshi punched the sea so hard that it pushed all the water away, leaving the ships on solid ground and allowing his army to attack Josokabe's men.
Where is the ocean?
The moment was astounding, as it felt like someone from Dragon Ball Z had just entered the anime, resulting in a mind-blowing feat. After parting the sea, Hideyoshi tanked cannonballs with his bare hands, and you'd think that the enemy would now know that a man who can punch that hard wouldn't be affected by measly cannonballs. Hideyoshi then proceeded to beat up Josokabe, proving himself to be one of the strongest characters around. Next up on the list, we have All Might as he arrives to save his students from the Nomu in My Hero Academia.
もう大丈夫。私が来た。
Our group of student heroes is in quite the pinch as Shigaraki and his gang get the upper hand on Aizawa Sensei. Izuku's full-powered smash does nothing to Nomu, and Tomura is about to decay both Tsuyu and Minoru. It's a desperately hopeless situation and defeat seems all but inevitable, but then All Might bursts into the picture. The entrance had some great timing as All Might was able to restore all lost hope in an instant. All Might rescues the gang before facing off against the overpowered Nomu. The entrance had everything needed to make it a true hero's entrance, and it had fans all over excited. What happened next proved to be one of the best fight scenes in the anime as the weakened All Might went plus ultra to protect the people he cares about. From start to finish, it was a spectacular moment and makes for a great addition to this list.
300発以上も撃ってしまった。
We have Skull Knight as he saves Guts and Casca during the eclipse from Berserk. Before Skull Knight made his entry, we had one of the most shocking acts of betrayal in the history of anime. Griffith had sacrificed his Band of the Hawk in a ritual that would allow him to ascend to godhood. The eclipse proved to be one of the most gut-wrenching moments as we saw the Band of the Hawk torn apart by the demons and then Casca being defiled by Griffith in front of Guts. The entire event was exceptionally dark, and it seemed impossible that anyone would be able to survive the ritual. That is until Skull Knight made his entrance. A being clad in heavy armor and riding a horse through the sky ripped into the fabric of the dimension and rushed through the demons and the god's hands before retrieving both Guts and Casca. Skull Knight's entrance was completely unexpected and welcome as he saved our protagonist from an early grave along with his lover and marked the beginning of a lifelong hatred. The next entry on this list is when Roy Mustang arrives to kill Envy from Full Metal Alchemist. Now it's important to note that Colonel Roy Mustang harbored intense animosity towards Envy as he was directly responsible for the death of Mustang's best friend Maze Hughes. Envy, disguised as Hughes' wife, manipulated events that led to Hughes' murder, causing Mustang deep grief and a desire for vengeance. Considering the history behind the two characters, it was extremely satisfying to watch Mustang arrive and give a piece of his mind to Envy. By a piece of his mind, I mean that he completely incinerates Envy in one of the most brutal ways ever. He constantly envies his flames, letting the homunculus scream and burn, while Mustang has the coldest, scariest expression he's ever shown to have. The entrance, along with the result, was just spectacular and incredibly satisfying, as we got to see a hero of the series completely decimate his opponent in a move that isn't common in shonen series. This particular entrance is when Ichigo arrives to face off against the original big baddie of the series, Aizen. A former captain of the Gotei 13, Aizen proved to be much stronger and much more cunning than his colleagues. He manipulated many events in the realm, and this led to the current time when he had all but defeated the captains and had turned into an incredibly powerful being after fusing with the Hogyoku. He seemed nigh undefeatable until Ichigo arrived with his new power-up, saving his father and giving Aizen one of the coldest stares around. Ichigo proceeds to check out his surroundings, seeing whether his friends are okay, before finally telling Aizen that he doesn't want to fight here. Aizen responds by saying that he isn't strong enough to order him around, to which Ichigo simply grabs Aizen by the face and just takes him to another location. It was the most badass moment around, and the villain we thought would prove a monumental threat was suddenly reduced to nothing when compared to Ichigo. It was a great entrance and led to a great fight scene with the awesome villain.
行くぜ、アイゼン。
Now, I'm all in favour of one-man armies acting as reinforcements, but sometimes it's even cooler when an entire army acts as reinforcements. Our next entry is one such moment when the Mountain Tribe rode in on their glorious stallions and turned the tide against the Zhao soldiers in the kingdom. Before their arrival, the Qin soldiers had their morale trampled on and their position was utterly desperate. With all hope lost and the army in despair, it was the Mountain Tribe that came to the rescue. The moment when the Queen of the tribe yells, "All troops, slaughter them!" was a moment that completely changed the tide of the battle as tens of thousands of soldiers charged in and began decimating the enemy forces. It was such an impactful moment that it sent literal chills down my spine. If not for their arrival, Sai would have fallen and the enemies would have succeeded. Besides everything else, who wouldn't want to cheer when such a huge army comes around as reinforcements? Definitely deserves an A in our books.
本当に来てくれたのか、山の民よ。
Up next, we have an entry that would only exist in anime. Naoshi Kano provides backup in Drifters.
誰が止まれっつったおら、動きやがれバカ野郎。
Now, the reason I say this is because at this moment, we have a fighter plane against dragons. But first, let me provide some background if you don't know about Drifters. During this moment, the Black King's army is attacking when a portal suddenly opens up and a World War II Japanese airplane comes out piloted by Naoshi. Now, Naoshi has ended up in a completely different world where he sees literal dragons attacking and causing a massacre. If you're a normal human being, you'd probably think this was a fever dream, but the first emotion Naoshi feels at this sight is severe anger. He remembers the bombing of Japan and literally flies into a rage, shooting down fire-breathing dragons one after the other. The ace pilot proves to be a massive reinforcement for the Drifters, and the entire scene is just awesome. I guess you don't need to be a knight in shining armor to fight off a dragon. Sometimes you just need a fighter plane with massive guns. Next up on the list, we have Alucard swooping in to save Richter and his friends.
Are you really Alucard? I thought you were just a myth.
Now, there aren't many anime characters who can brag about the guys who back them up, but Richter has complete bragging rights over this. Who else could ever say that the son of Count Dracula was the one who came as their reinforcement? No one but a member of the Belmont family. With Richter and his friends exhausted and Drolter on their tails, it would have taken a miracle to save them from certain death. And that miracle was Alucard. It took Alucard all but a second to stab Drolter through the neck as she went for Richter, and the vampire could do little more than shrivel up and die. Alucard then turns to the other vampires and introduces himself as the son of Dracula, and he's willing to kill every single one of them. It was such a cold, badass line, and the villains literally just ran off after that. Can't really ask for a better reinforcement when fighting creatures of the night.
I am Alucard, son of Dracula. And if you fight me, you will die.
Badass vampires aside, let's take a step back and talk about an entry like the one we started off this list with. In other words, it's when Barbatos makes its entrance in Iron-Blooded Orphans.
僕たちはただ負けないように抗うことしかできない。行くぞ、バルバトス。
Prior to his arrival, the new recruits have to face off against the large pirate faction known as the Dawn Horizon Corps, who bring out the big guns in this fight. Luckily for our heroes though, Mikazuki August arrived as their reinforcement while piloting the Gundam Barbatos Lupus, and boy is his arrival grand. Our boy literally falls from the sky in the middle of enemy ranks and begins destroying the enemy mobile suits one after the other. The Devil of Tekka then made short work of the pirates, considering his connection to Barbatos via the Alaya Vijnana system made him a force to be reckoned with. The pirates quickly retreated, and right in the nick of time since Barbatos stopped functioning right after. At least Mikazuki got the job done and looked totally badass while doing it. And there was definitely something about that classic animation that hit the sweet spot with the entry.
マジかよ本当にやっちまったあれに三日月が乗ってるっていうのか
But I won't say it doesn't get any better, since the next entry on the list is the Night Parade of 100 Demons in Nura.
このお方こそ総大将ヌラリヒョンの孫次なる妖怪の主となるお方だ
Before gushing over this awesome moment, let me give you a little bit of background here, okay? The Night Parade of 100 Demons is exactly what the name implies. A gathering of numerous yokai under the banner of a single leader, which in this case was Rikuo Nura. He came along with his followers to help our damsels in distress who were abducted by the rat demons. These guys had quite a number of their own, but just like rats, they posed little threat to our hero in his parade. The way Rikuo entered the area and coolly faced the rat demons made for a pretty badass entrance, and the fight that ensued was super fun to watch. The clash clearly showed that Rikuo's faction was in a league of its own as they took down the rat demons with minimal effort, even turning it into a game of who could defeat more. Most of the yokai didn't even have to use their full power, which just goes to show how incredibly strong these reinforcements really were.
猫が逃げちまったぜくそ舐めやがって
Since we're already talking about demons, our next entry on this list is when Giyu and Shinobu arrive to fight against the spider demons in Demon Slayer.
首を切られてないからって安心したらいけませんよ。私のように毒を使う剣士もいますからね。
Now, the Spider family was a clan of demons led by the lower rank 5 Rui, one of the 12 demon moons. At this point in the anime, these 5 demons would prove to be a massive threat to our protagonists. Tanjiro, Zenitsu and Inosuke have to fight against the other members of this family, but they soon get badly beaten up when fighting against the father demon. At one point, Inosuke is left to fight alone against the demon and is on the verge of death when Giyu arrives to save our beast-breathing hero. Giyu later takes out the strongest of the spider demons, Rui, with a single move. Tanjiro did put up a great fight against Rui, so not taking any credit away from him. Nonetheless, the water Hashira was in a league of his own. Just like Giyu, Shinobu had arrived as well and had just as quickly taken care of another member of these demons in the most terrifying way possible. It certainly showed the difference between regular demons and Hashira, showing everyone, including the protagonists, that they were pillars for a reason.
仲良くするのは無理なようですね。残念残念。
Up next, we have a moment from Undead Unluck when the Round Table members enter the scene to fight off against Victor.
反応はいい一度のせいで大したもんだ
While fighting against Spoil, our boy Andy had to bring out the big guns and remove the card from his forehead that limits his power. Shen sends both Spoil and Andy into space where his looks start to change and his regeneration gains a massive boost. Andy makes quick work of Spoil, only to return to the Earth in the form of Victor, Andy's original personality. Victor quickly turns against Fuko and Shen has to intervene, but Shen proves to be no match for him. So he calls in the Avenge, the Union members. These were some much needed reinforcements and the fight is certainly one to look at as it has some pretty awesome animation and choreography overall as well. The Union members are key at holding off Victor long enough for Fuko to latch onto his original body and summon Andy's personality and a massive stroke of unluck. The fight luckily ends with Andy back as the main personality and the day is saved.
不変は惜しかったがなるほど
Ever wondered what it would be like if medieval soldiers had to fight off against advanced military weaponry? Well, not anymore, as this next entry is the fight of the Valkyries in Gate.
ガッキー、こちらオスカー。城門の中には味方がいる。
To assist the 3rd Unit in defending Italica, the important trading town, the Japanese Special Defense Forces sends a unit of helicopters, and their entry is just insane. The military personnel literally play Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner as they fly into the battlefield. The squad then proceeds to use guns and missiles to take out enemy forces in a totally one-sided slaughterfest. It's quite literally the definition of don't bring a sword to a gunfight. What on earth could you possibly do with arrows and swords when the other party has literal attack helicopters? Viewers who watched this scene probably sat there baffled just like we did, since these reinforcements were definitely along the lines of cheating. Anyway, at least it again proved that gunpowder beats sword skills.
誇りも名誉も全てを否定する人はなんて矮小で無価値で無意味なのか。
Just like the last entry on the list, here's another group of reinforcements that save our hero from certain death in the nick of time. It's when the Black Bulls save Asta and Nero from their execution in Black Clover.
返してもらうぜ。アスター！
黒の防御。
After Astar's demon form is exposed, the Magic Parliament passes a death sentence on him, effectively using him as a scapegoat. Asta tries to tell everyone that he's able to control his devilish powers, but his appeals fall on deaf ears. Asta is trapped in a corner with no hope in sight when the Black Bulls suddenly burst onto center stage. All of them vouch for Asta and make it clear that they're willing to use force to bring him back, not caring whether they'll be marked as fugitives for defying the authorities. Yami goes on to even accept Nero, making her one of the Black Bulls as well. All hell was about to break loose if it wasn't for the Wizard King's message. Even though there wasn't any great fight, this scene was still super impactful because of the sheer camaraderie shown by the Black Bulls in looking out for their own.
俺たち黒の母乳だ！
今だ、ミカサ。
These reinforcements were more forced than anything, as Eren chose to create absolute chaos during Willy Tybur's speech. He ended up killing dignitaries and military personnel. He even ended up killing scores of innocent civilians too. The preemptive attack was absolutely brutal, but Eren then had to face off against the Warhammer Titan. The Scout Regiment was then forced to act as reinforcements to protect Eren from the Warhammer as well as Magath troops. The Scouts were ruthless reinforcements as they assaulted Marley's military, killing Malayan soldiers left and right. The entire series of events was ruthless and chaotic and marked one of the biggest turning points in the anime. Watching the Scouts wreak havoc on the Marleyans while zipping around rooftops and buildings was an awe-inspiring sight. I guess we can look over the fact that the reinforcements were forced to act. Best of all, we got to see Levi in action.
みんな来てくれたんだな。
エレン、お願い。帰ってきて。
Next up, we have Luffy and the prisoners arriving at Marineford in one piece.
以上の顛末によりルフィたちは落下中である。
The entire war at Marineford, later known as the Paramount War, was an exceptional clash of forces as Whitebeard's entire crew came to rescue Ace from execution, with the military might of the Marines standing in their way. The fight was astounding and one of the most well-remembered points in One Piece history, and it also had one of the coolest moments when reinforcements arrived. We're talking about the point where Luffy and his ragtag group of prisoners fell from the sky and landed smack dab in the middle of the battlefield. Sure, they weren't the strongest of reinforcements considering the people taking part in the war, but it was stunning for even the Marines and the Warlords of the Sea when they saw a ship and a bunch of pirates just free-falling. And Luffy yelling for Ace as Ace looked on? Man, it was a moment One Piece fans just couldn't quite forget. Asuna could do nothing since she was surrounded by enemies on all sides, but luckily for her, beams of light came straight out of the sky, teleporting her much needed help. A ton of characters actually show up here, which includes Liz, Silica, Klein, and 3 different armies. This is just like the Avengers Assemble scene of anime, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. When they said that everybody was here, they weren't kidding. Although a lot of people have already given up on SAO, this is one of the iconic statements it's made over the past years, telling the world that it is still worth to watch. It was a badass moment that truly embodied the phrase, gamers, rise up. Klein might have been considered as one of the funnier characters in the series, but in this moment, he was one of the heroes. Even his entrance shocked Asuna and their enemies, and he deserved that screen time. Next up, we have another iconic scene, and it's when Briggs' forces arrive in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. What truly sets this moment apart from the others is that it shows us that sometimes even the little guys can be heroes, you know? You gotta give props to that sniper because he was the only reason why Edward and the others were able to get rescued. The headshot, man, it was just clean. The others didn't hold back either. They peppered him with mortars, machine guns, and a whole lot more. Even though that didn't do a lot, it takes a lot of guts for a normal guy with a gun to face off against the most powerful being in the entire series. Mustang, standing there with his eyes closed, was just complete badassery as well. And still, even if everything they did didn't even make Father flinch, the way everyone contributed to the battle was still epic. It truly felt like a huge climactic battle worthy of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Again, the sniper has to be commemorated because that was such a sick shot. Moving on, we have a relatively new series that's starting to take the industry by storm. Let's take a look at the moment when the Furin students save Sakura in Windbreaker.
この街でこんなもん振り回すことがどれほどのことか分かってたろうなうら
Although it still hasn't even completed its first season, Windbreaker is already being dubbed by fans as the next Tokyo Revengers, or it might be even better than that. How can it beat Tokyo Revengers? I'm not hating Takemichi whatsoever, but the MC in Windbreaker is actually pretty strong. However, no matter how strong he is, when his ankle's wounded and he has to defend a girl at the same time, he's definitely in some trouble. But luckily for him, the students of Furin, the town's protectors, step in to get rid of the thugs. Even though there were just 4 of them and they were outnumbered 3-1, it seemed like that they could take on more, seeing how they beat them up like it was just nothing. The first Furin student even caught a bat swing to the back and he just shrugged it off like it was nothing. What made the scene even more epic was the people cheering them on, and Sakura realizing that delinquents playing as heroes were awesome.
あんたが望んだものになれるよ。
Now we're travelling all the way to the medieval ages where vampires roam the night as Alucard arrives just in time in Castlevania Season 4. You see, at this time in Castlevania, there were tons of horrific beings known as night creatures, and they were ready to devour anything in their path. And of course, their prime targets just had to be humans. That's why this village was under attack, but luckily for them, none of them had to die that night because Alucard, the son of Dracula, arrived. He made a statement with that entrance, and his breaking a night creature's neck using his hands was cold. The animation too was so fluid, and the choreography was insane. I can't believe how underrated Castlevania is, especially with fight scenes like this. The ending was also just as good as the entrance because just using his shield and the moon behind his back, Alucard ended the entire attack. It was absolute cinema. Not to mention that Alucard was also drunk on wine when he beat these crab people to death. Now, if that doesn't prove how strong he is, then I don't know what does. I mentioned Tokyo Revengers before, and now it's here with the moment when Mikey and Draken arrive to fight Tenjiku.
総長
Now, I know you may have thought that the battle against the Black Dragons was a better choice, but in my opinion, them arriving at the perfect moment when Takemichi and the First Division were outnumbered by the most dangerous thugs in the series wasn't only important to the plot, but was just as surprising. You see, before this, Mikey's sister died and both Draken and Mikey were out of commission. This was also the time when Izana and Mikey fought and Takemichi finally landed a punch on Kisaki. Takemichi carried the fight at the beginning and Mikey was gonna end it. You could see Takemichi's character development and my man didn't even scream after getting shot in his foot. The entire moment was full of emotion and it actually proved that not giving up can be worth it. Also, Takemichi holding his hand up as Mikey stood behind him actually had a lot of foreshadowing that I'm not going to spoil for you. My boy Takemichi didn't lose until the end, even if he was fighting a losing battle. We move to Gintama and witness Gintoki's epic entrance.
その男は侍というにはあまりに荒々しく
Although this wasn't as serious as the one we just looked at in Black Clover, I think the humour made this one a whole lot better. I mean, they even had to reconstruct Gintoki inside of Sadaharu, which is both confusing and funny at the same time. And where did Gintoki come from? Straight out of Sadaharu's butt. After that was just pure epicness as Gintoki rushed in and destroyed all of their enemies. He might just be one of the most badass anime characters of all time, because I don't know anyone who comes out of a giant dog's butt and still looks cool. The OST was also a complete banger. This moment is the personified version of the word anime, where everything is ridiculous and badass at the same time. Again, just to emphasize why I added this to the list, Gintoki was shot out of Sadaharu's butt, but it still made me emotional and gave me chills. Gintama might not be for everyone, but this is what anime is all about. Funnily enough, this next moment has something to do with fashion as well, and it's when Best Genius saved the heroes in My Hero Academia.
私たちは紡ぐ一縷の希望を
At first thought, you wouldn't believe how a guy who can manipulate genes can become one of the top heroes in Japan, but when you see him jump off a plane without a parachute, you'll definitely change your mind. Gigantomachia and Darby were decimating the heroes, but Best Genius alone was able to completely subdue both of them at the same time while still in the air. Although they did escape after some time, his presence was still enough to buy some time for more backup to arrive, including Lemillion. Still though, Best Genius took the spotlight because even with all his wounds and blood coming out of his eye, he still held on. No matter what. He might have had a weird quirk, but he's definitely one of the best written heroes in the series. He quite literally has the threads of hope and he earned my respect. Surprisingly, he even earned Bakugo's respect, which is very rare. That's why he's one of the strongest heroes in the series. Moving on to another very popular series, we have Demon Slayer when Tengen arrives and saves his wives from Daki.
誰か入ってきた
Tengen might be a demon slayer who's willing to sacrifice his life so that he can get rid of the demons once and for all, but he's not going to sacrifice his wives. First, he takes care of Hinatsuru and then goes on to save Makio and Suma from Daki. Seeing him unwrap his two gigantic swords by cutting the wraps themselves was nothing short of badass. What's even more epic was how he just blitzed all of Daki's obi sashes and cut through them like he was just cutting through paper. Although it wasn't as explosive or as exciting compared to the other fights in the series, it did give us a glimpse into Uzui's entire character. It showed us that even though he does seem a little arrogant, he cares a lot for his wives and puts their safety above everyone else's, even if they are Konoichis. He isn't just flashy, but he truly has some next level riz. Now I know why the women love this guy and why he has 3 wives in the first place. Let's not stop talking about fast and deadly dual-wielding swordsmen because we have Levi when he saved Eren and Armin in Attack on Titan. Now during this time, they successfully plugged the hole in the wall and now they were surrounded by titans from all sides. Armin was having trouble pulling out Eren from his titan body and when he fell, a titan was already on top of them. But the background music kicks in and suddenly all of the titans just die. And of course, no one could pull that off except for Levi himself, or maybe Mikasa. Anyway, we didn't even know who he was here. All we knew was that he's a scout and he's completely overpowered, which just made it even better. Not to mention, Levi didn't even put in a lot of effort when it came to that rescue. He disposed of those titans like it was just a walk in the park. I just know that when Levi opens his mouth, fangirls come out of nowhere and just scream their lungs out, but it's justified because this man is a walking, talking titan killing machine. Punching its way into this list is when Saitama saved Mumen Rider in One Punch Man. Some need armies or an entire roster of characters, but in this series, you only have one bald dude that wears a yellow suit and white cape. First things first, I just want to applaud Moomin Rider for facing off against that terrifying monster, and secondly, the Deep Sea King shouldn't have hit Saitama's bald head. The people even doubted him at first, but with just one punch, Saitama instantly blew a hole through its upper body and even changed the entire weather. It's like a player doing all the annoying side quests, reaching level 100 and then beating the first boss in the game. Saitama didn't even use his serious moves, he just stood there and punched him like how you'd shadow punch with your sibling. I was worried a bit when the animation added a lot of detail to the Deep Sea King, but turns out you just need an egg-shaped head to be one of the most overpowered anime characters of all time. What's even funnier is that he thought it was all lame. What's better than being saved by the most powerful character in anime, being backed up by your brother? So say hello to Jujutsu Kaisen and the moment when Todo arrives to save Yuji Itadori.
祇園少女の鐘の声諸行無常の響きありシャラ掃除の花の色
I swear, whenever these two pair up, every fight just becomes 1,000 times more exciting. Yuji was on the brink of despair on this one after losing Kugisaki, and Mahito even landed a black flash on him, but look who came to the rescue. Not gonna lie, the entire fight that led up to this was full of hype. He went full My Hero Academia on Mahito just by throwing a rock. The animators went wild on this one, and they didn't care if it was over the budget because they had to do it. You have to remember, Todo is just another student, and Mahito is a special grade cursed spirit that could kill almost anyone he faces. There's nothing like brotherly love to bring out some severe emotional trauma. Todo is just a walking hype man, and I wish I had someone like him in my life. Todo's entire purpose in life is to worship Takara-chan and give Yuji some hope. Next up is a fight that happened years ago, but is still one of the most iconic moments when reinforcements arrive in anime, and it's when Goku arrives to fight Vegeta in Dragon Ball. Now, I didn't add it here just purely out of nostalgia, but it's because it deserves this spot. Vegeta beat Piccolo and Gohan was about to be turned into a pulp, but Goku came out of nowhere and took Gohan out of harm's way. The only way I can describe this scene is that it aged like fine wine, and it's easily one of the best scenes in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. This very series defined our childhoods, and I know that when you came up to this moment, you were jumping on your sofa like the kid you were. It may be short, but its impact lasted for generations. When Vegeta looked up, it wasn't a bird, it wasn't a plane, it was Goku. Now we have the arrival of Sinbad and the Seven Seas Alliance in Magi.
あれは第9得意点シンドバッド
The enemy is about to plunge the world into utter darkness, and our heroes can't do a hint of damage to her. Numerous innocents will die, and empires will vanish. It's truly a battle of high stakes, and all hope seems lost, when suddenly a massive blast of lightning attacks the monstrous being and results in a massive explosion. And who better to introduce the savior of the world than the villain herself? The first-class Singularity enters the battlefield with the entirety of the Seven Seas Alliance, resulting in the tides of the battle shifting in our hero's favor. You truly can't get better reinforcements than this, and even the villain seconds that opinion. From the tense build-up of desperation to the thrilling last-second rescue, all while keeping the spellcaster's identity under wraps. The villain's grand introduction of the mysterious figure sets the scene for an unforgettable moment. All of that accompanied by some awesome music, spine-tingling voice acting, and gorgeous animation. This arrival is an absolutely top-notch moment.
アリババくん、ヤンムさん、ドラコンおじさんもいる。
Let's just cut to the chase. Luffy coming in to save Ace in his execution is one of the most chilling moments of the Marineford arc. To give some context here, what we have is Luffy bravely making a seemingly unthinkable entrance, crashing in front of the three admirals, some of the strongest characters in universe so far. This guy has no fear. We don't see an ounce of quit or wavering in Luffy's eyes. He's determined to get the job done, and it doesn't matter what enemies stand in his way. He's gonna save Ace through hell or high water. The expressions of the admirals and Luffy say it all. Just like the three, I found myself impressed at our protagonist's tenacity. Then we have Jujutsu Kaisen.
いけるかマイフレンド
The moment I'm talking about is Yuji and Todo's entrance in saving Maki. You know, when Hanami decides to make his presence felt and tries to make an impression at the expense of Maki and Megumi. Then Yuji and Todo drop down from out of nowhere, starting out one of the best fights the show gave us. This scene built up anticipation for the upcoming battle. After seeing the two fight and take each other to the limits, it's finally time for them to take on a powerful foe together. Now, the writers did a great job in building to this moment by giving the two a good amount of time battling and conversing. You can really feel a growing senior-junior bond growing between Yuji and Todo while they battled, and now the stage is set for everyone to see the fruits of that bond.